Hi, everybody. It is Chris F. Walker. I am here with Bryan Shigekawa, who is the very busy brains behind the CIC. And we actually managed to lock him down. But, Bryan, we ended up having to kind of find a way to just do a quick conference call since we're constantly ships in the night and passing. So thanks for sitting down and carving out some block of time just to talk to us. The main reason why I wanted to do this, though, was since I've come on board especially, we've been getting to talk a lot about what's kind of been leading up to this event and how it's been the story behind it, what's been leading into it. And God's just been all over the place in this. He's been showing up, taking care of problems with venues, taking care of problems with talent, taking care of, you've got budgetary issues that he's been coming through on. It's just been like testimony after testimony after and it seems to me like it's worthwhile to share these, but we haven't had the chance. Now I know we're going to be doing interviews with all the panelists and we're going to get to dive into all of them, but you're like the behind the scenes guy. Nobody knows really who you are or what you're doing or how it's getting done. You're the mask, that's the what's it called? The puppeteer.
I'm the wizard in the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, exactly. You're the guy behind the curtain, you're making it all happen.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of get a chance to share those stories because my gosh, they're so inspiring. So to start off with, why don't you give us a little bit of kind of a just general background? How'd you kind of end up with the skill sets and this vision on your heart for, I want to build the Christian Influencer Convention?
All right. Thank you so much for the question, Chris. I first started out like anyone else in the sense of being like a party planner. I've always been great with like organizing events with my friends and family. I always had that like a good spatial reasoning. So I just know how to put little, like, I guess you put the peg in the right hole, versus like, put a, square peg in a round hole.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the one who, like, you hit it hard enough, it'll go in.
Yeah. So I was in the entertainment industry for about 7.5 years, from 2010 to 2017. And in between that time, I actually owned a comedy theater from 2011 to 2013 for 2.5 years. And that was with a different business partner. And I loved every aspect of what I just did, And actually, do you know the show Whose Line Is It Anyways?
Yeah. Yeah, the improv stuff where they make everything up on the spot based off of cues. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So that was what we did with the improv theater for 2.5 years. One show on Friday, 2 shows on Saturday. And once it ended, it was just like, man, I want more of this. But I just knew in my heart of hearts, my weakness is marketing. So I just needed to find something in marketing, and I've been praying for over a decade to actually get this thing going.
Okay, so that gives us an idea of kind of how you got the generalization and the concept of being able to do production and put things together. But why? I mean, you were in the comedy world. So what led it from comedy to transition into saying, I'm going to try and build a convention that's just specifically around kingdom growth?
Yeah, so I've seen people do models where even though they're Christian, they'll still do stuff that's more on the secular side, or they're not so professing it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did with the comedy theater, where we weren't openly like Christian, but we kept it clean. We kept it more family friendly. Most comedy is known as being blue, which is like cursing or private part jokes. Mm-hmm. But where are you going to go from there? Like usually a lot of times people like, it's like 85% of the time. Yeah. And funny enough, a lot of improv places like Groundlings or UCB actually says, don't go blue. Mm-hmm. If you can help it, just stay, that's like a cheap joke or whatnot. But for me, to answer your question about what got me into the Christian world was because I always wanted to put a convention together. I just didn't know what. And that's what I was praying about for many years. And then as of a few years ago, before I moved to Vegas, I just said, why don't I have something like it's a Christian convention or a Christian influencer convention? Yes, there's like men's altar conferences, women's conventions, pastoral conventions, but something that is near and dear in my heart is to hit the people that are unreached, which are the Generation Z, younger millennials, and now Generation Alpha. And they consume a lot of social media. And I actually consume myself a lot of YouTube, and I know a lot of other friends do Instagram as well. And, you know, now the advent of TikTok the last couple of years, I'm like, okay, what can I do to use my spiritual giftings in getting a convention together and hit the people that are the least churched?
Okay. Yeah, I love it. So you just kind of have always been in that world of saying, you know, I want to keep things close to the, you know, impactful and close to practicality as possible. And I love also that you're kind of pointing out that the unreached is the big push, which was one of the allures when you and I first started talking about this, was like, you know, holy crap, this is a great way to reach a lot of the people who probably they might not even ever set foot in a church. There's other avenues through which we can do. I mean, we live in a day and age now where, you know, if something happens within a matter of seconds, it can be all over the world simply through social media and technology. And one of the things that's been fun is in some of the conferences, when I get to go kind of tell people about how bad social media can be, like some of the things that it can do to you, the sad reality that we have to accept is that the only way to reach the people with the message about what social media can do to you as kind of a warning is to put it on social media, because it's the only way they're going to consume it. Because otherwise they're not going to see it in most other places that they would look. But I love that what you're acknowledging is, since this is a form of communication that everybody's using, this is where the message needs to be. Instead of trying to fight against it, you're saying, if this is where it's at, then let's dive into it instead of trying to outcast it. So you've got a vision in your heart, and you've got some skill sets now, and you've learned that this is something you're passionate about. But like you had mentioned earlier, you didn't even have a marketer yet. You don't really have a team established. So what happens next? How do you go from, I have this idea, to now seeing this is something that can occur, and even having some of those people showing up?
Well, I was praying about it, like I was saying, for over a decade, but more importantly, when I moved out here in Vegas, I moved here for actually something called the International School of Hospitality, and TISO for short. And it was the emphasis in event production. It was a 1-year vocational trade school type place. And that was actually, I moved here in January 2020. And of course, 2 months later, everyone knows what happens after that, right?
Yeah, a little COVID.
So, yeah. So then once it went digital, I actually moved back to Southern California, and that's where my parents were, and finished up my schooling, got straight A's. That was the first time I've ever got straight A's, so I'm really happy about that. Then I moved back here in June 2021, worked for a couple of vendors, and then I was just like, all right, what next? You know, like, I'm at this place at a vendor for a while, and so praying, and then finally, someone named Tony Benton arrived in my life in a community group that we still go to together. And as we got to know each other, I told him what I'm envisioning and whatnot, and he says, "Oh yeah, I'm a marketer, and I have my own marketing firm, so it'd be a lot cheaper that way." And I'm like, "Okay." So we just started talking for another few weeks, and then lo and behold, November 5th was my first interest meeting, and of last year,
of 22,
and
right? Yeah.
That's 2022, and that's when he jumped on board immediately, and there you go.
Okay, awesome. So, and Tony has been kind of the brains behind a lot of the branding and marketing campaigns we've seen up to this point. And, you know, he's obviously very good at what he does, because truth is, all you got to do, if you just see Tony, you know, when he smiles, and he's got the cool mustache going on, and he sometimes has that little curly thing for his hair. It's just, nothing about him strikes you as odd, but it does bear paying attention to. Like, everything about him is just like, you should kind of look and see what's going on. So perfect guy for that. Okay, so he starts doing this and comes on board, but then now you've got the vision, and you got someone who can help you get the message out. So basically the next step is, okay, who's the talent? Who's going to be the people that show up for this convention? And so as you were kind of deciding who's the talent, did you have any like predetermined, you know, I want maybe these people, or I have this kind of demographic, or was there anything in particular that you went for, or was it just, let's just put out feelers and see what happens? I mean, how did that kind of organically come into the panels that we now have?
Yeah. First started out with people that I knew from all walks of life, either being the entertainment industry. There's entertainment Bible studies I was a part of in Southern California, and Also, yeah, throughout the 7 years, of course, you meet so many people throughout the industry, especially for me as an extrovert. Throughout the church that I was a part of, there's a lot of entertainment people there too. So reached out to probably over 100, 150 people from my friends list on Facebook and my Rolodex on like texting them and seeing if there's like friends of friends. And then anybody that I've seen online, I wrote them down, did cold emails or form fills. And yeah.
Okay, so now you had mentioned, I remember at one point you had talked about you noticed you were getting like all one kind and you wanted to spread out, and then next thing you know, it turned into like an explosion of awesomeness. I don't remember the whole, but you had been like only the initial people had been like single guys or something, and then you decided I wanted a couple, something like that.
Yeah, I wanted a couple couples. Yeah, that was pretty funny. Where I all of a sudden, algorithm wise, maybe it's God wise, that that on YouTube, I guess as I was looking for more and more Christian content, then of course it starts picking that up. Then I saw this couple named Hannah and Regal, and looked over their stuff, and I was just like, wow, I really like their cuteness. I really like how they treat each other, just how they come off, and
yeah, they're so adorable. It's annoying sometimes.
Yeah,
oh my gosh, you're too cute.
So then I reached out to their talent agency or management company, and that's when she also presented a whole bunch of other couples for me. So instead of praying for one or two couples, I now ended up with 7.
Dang. So
yeah,
almost half the panel is couples then. And you know what's actually what I love is in a day and age where everybody always talks about how it seems like the focus is on divorce. And what I've also noticed is in the process of exploring divorce and marriage, a lot of times what people seem to do is they seem to have the mentality of not necessarily saying, how can I have a good marriage? They tend to lean more towards, how can I just avoid divorce? And a lot of times that kind of sabotages them because it means that the only thing they're focused on is not making a good marriage, just on trying to avoid the divorce thing. And I don't think that's a good way for thriving. But what you just did in the context of that is we have a world where half of the marriages end in divorce. That's true. Well, now half of the panel are happily married couples. So
yeah, actually, it's more the majority of the panels. Right. Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's actually something to be said about maybe a message that God's trying to influence there as well, as like just remembering that the family unit is the core of the home. So we have panelists starting to come now. Now you originally had one venue that was relatively small. I think you said one of the libraries or something, and then we ended up at South Point. How did we end up at South Point? Because that's a story.
So I was in it's called the Clark County Library or Flamingo Library, and so I had that first, and that just had a few hundred seats, and I would have been happy with that as well. It was just that once I started getting more talent on board, I was like, okay, it's going to be pretty easy for me to breach that number, and I can bring more talent on board. And as I was looking and scouring, actually kind of wheeling it back a little bit, I had a business meeting with my bank and to open up a business account for the first time. And so he was going through everything. And then once I was done with the meeting, I wanted to go pick up some chicken. And there's this place out here called Winco. So it's a supermarket out here. And usually I go to a different supermarket, but since this was next door, I was just like, okay, just pick this up real quick and then hop and go back to my community group. And so as I was traversing the store, I had to actually go around twice to find the chicken for some odd reason. But I think there was a timing to that because I was on the phone kind of getting more frustrated about venue, more frustrated about talent. It's like, Lord, let me know if you're in this. Like, is this thing even going to happen? And this was like, 3 months ago. And then I finally got the chicken, went to the cashier line, and all of a sudden I felt this vigorous tapping on my shoulder. I'm like, okay, why don't you just tap me once, just say, excuse me. So then I just turn around and I'm like, hi. And he's like, yeah, I'd like to get that for you. And I'm like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, the food item that you're about to get. I'd like to pay that for you. I'm like, oh, so like pay it forward? Because this never happened to me before. I've only seen it on videos and whatever.
Okay.
And he's like, yeah, pay it forward, yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Okay. Shook his hand, exchanged names, and I wish I remembered his name. I wish I wrote that down. But then I was about to get the chicken, and he told the cashier, hey, that chicken that the guy has in front of me, please put it on my tab instead. And he's like, oh, okay. So then shook his hand second time and just said, hey, you know what's the funny thing? I'm getting this chicken from my community group. It's a Bible study group, and I'm going to make food. It's called juk. It's rice porridge and chicken. He's like, oh man, all the better. And I was like, dude, this guy's exuberant. I loved it. And then as I got the chicken, walked out about 2 feet away from my car, I started breaking down. I was like, was that God's way of saying, I got you? And that was Wednesday night. Thursday morning came by, and that's when South Point came in. And for what I thought was a low ball number, South Point almost came to half, because all the other venues were super expensive. And I was like, that was incredible. I was like, okay, this has to be a God thing.
Okay. So you're angry and you're frustrated and you're trying to figure out how this is going to happen. And you basically, for lack of better words, in frustration, turn to God and say, if you want this, you're going to have to figure this out. And his answer is, well, how about I buy you dinner first through another person's blessings. Let me go ahead and buy your dinner for you real quick, just to let you know that I got this. And then the next morning you get the phone call that says, not only are you not going to have to worry about seating capacity at some library, but I'm literally going to put you right on Las Vegas Boulevard.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to even just think about it, verbalizing it. Yeah.
Okay. So you've got the venue here. I guess you and I probably met somewhere around shortly after this time then, because I think South Point was always, when I came on board, was always the venue at that point.
Yeah, well, we did meet at a park, and I met your lovely wife as well.
Yeah.
But I only knew you for just that blip. And then, we would meet each other a couple of times at church. But then as you heard more about what this is all about and you came on as MC, then, I remember shortly thereafter, I asked if you wanted to be more heavily involved in it. And that's when you became my brand ambassador. Yeah,
it was actually, the more I learned about it, the more it made me want to not just see it be successful, but see the long-term ramifications of this. It's not about showing up and trying to put on a good event. Let's see if we can build something that's repeatable so that people can continually be using this as a means for growing God's kingdom. And I love the strategy behind it, especially the people presenting. I'm sure that we'll probably end up through the course of the years, we'll probably have some of the pastors and doctorates and things like that. But the vast majority of kingdom sharing, everybody seems to always put it on the superheroes, on the authors, on the doctors, on the people who their whole platform is just about preaching the gospel. But that's not the Great Commission. The Great Commission is talking to every single one of us to be able to, at any given time, share the gospel of how it's affected our life through our own testimony to help influence other people so that they know that there's a truth out there and there's a truth that we can turn to and who he is. So I loved the concept there. And then and a fun little caveat was we were I think that was the day I brought up the croquet set, right? At the
yeah, that was it.
We it's just fun to think about it, but nobody ever plays croquet anymore. But I have it just because with some of my kids, they're not always they're not at the same age, so they don't always compete at the same level in certain things. But with croquet, as long as they can hold them out, they can whack the ball. So
right.
But it was fun to think that this like 14th century pastime is actually I'm lying. I don't know when croquet got invented, but still it's Victorian age at the very least. But it's fun to think that something that's so old, which nobody even thinks about anymore, ended up combining two people who were going to have a vision something like this. That's actually really funny. Okay, so a lot of fun there because you started, putting something on your heart. You got an idea. God starts giving you some of the skill sets that you need to kind of set the stage. Then he says, I'm going to start putting the team around you to start making it happen. And then as you start seeing that it's occurring, you're saying we don't have the right venue and it's not going to work. So God steps in and buys you dinner and then gives you a venue. How about like you on your personal level? Because a lot of times when people jump out in faith, it's scary to do that. And in this case, you've literally jumped out of the boat in faith. There's no safety net. Because the phrase that you've used has been what's the phrase? Bet on the house or bet the house?
So the funny thing, I guess you can say it's an irony. I guess the right word of irony is in Vegas, you bet on the house, and then you're just gambling. But in this case, I'm betting my actual house, where I had enough money to put a down payment on a house, and this was many years in the making. And but I was reminded of a few stories, where one of them being, it was a pastor out in Pasadena, California, where he told me, or he told the congregation about what is enough. And there's about 2,000 plus verses in the Bible talking about stewardship or finance or money. Mm-hmm. And so it's the most talked about subject, and because it's very important, it can become very useful or it could be very chaotic. That's actually one of the most, like as we were talking about beforehand about divorce, that's one of the leading causes, that and communication.
Sure. But, yeah, finances.
I digress. That where for me, it was very scary to think about doing this, but I just thought about, that pastor, he said, what is enough? Like, you can have the $200 jeans, you can have the Lexus, you can have a good house or whatever, but what is enough? Because, there's only so much that you can have here. And then, as humans, we want to go to the next rung and the next rung. And it's just like, you got to stop. Otherwise it becomes too much of an idol or chaos. And another one is, another pastor that you and I go to, I can't remember his name, but at Hope Church, he talked about, if you are a son or daughter in Christ, every single dollar that is given to you is God's money. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he poured into the story of the talents, both in your spiritual talents and money talents. Yeah. Where are you going to invest it? Or are you going to bury it? Are you going to be a wicked servant? Or are you going to make something of it? Are you going to reap and sow? Or are you going to let it die? And, every day that we wake up is not given to us, and it's a blessing. So it's just like, when you're dead, all that money that you decided to accumulate is gone. It either goes back to the government or next of kin or whatever, but it's out of your control. You're
Money's
dead.
Still there, but your stewardship over it has ended. Yeah.
Yeah.
You literally took the money you've been saving towards a house, and that was the seed money for this project to get the convention rolling.
Yeah, I have no other investors.
Okay, that's. I mean, I don't know how to step out of a boat any more than that, because literally, money in this day and age is kind of the time is money. That's sweat and equity that you've poured out to gain those assets, only then turn around and say, I'm going to bet it all.
Yeah. Many years on putting God's it together.
That's faith. And you know what? All I can say for that one is power to you. And man, I hope I hope this becomes an even bigger success than you expect at that point, because of that kind of faith, it should be rewarded, especially since it's you didn't even want to do the interview that we're doing right now. You've brought me on board to be the face, but I'm the face of something that you're doing. This is you behind in the background. To see God working like that and rewarding you is something that's just so inspiring. So from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thanks at all for even letting me be part of this, because what an amazing adventure. Okay. Well, so as we get ready,
I'm definitely not the talent of what is it, like presentation or what do you call that? The people that go up on stage.
Well, I just call it showmanship, I guess. But in the world that I came from, we called it podium presence. How do you look when you're standing in front of people? But at the same time, you can be a podium presence and be absolutely worthless at pretty much everything else. I mean, that's why.
Public speaking. There you go. Public speaking.
So you could be a great public speaker.
Not the best public speaker,
just
but
not good at things. But you, on the other hand, you're kind of you're the wizard who's you're the puppeteer. You got all the strings. trying to dance it all. And I got to hand it to you because I've done a lot of projects, but that's a lot of moving parts, and you've been doing it solo. Kudos, and the areas where you just could not handle it, God's now put people in to fill those gaps. I mean, that's epic. So, okay, well, great story on that. But now, Bryan, we're getting ready to have to kind of cut this thing short as I look at the time here. I want to honor your time. We're getting ready to, it's July 26th at South Point in Las Vegas, Nevada. Registration opens at 8:30 in the morning. There's going to be pre-reg the night before. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. On July 25th from 6 to 9 p.m.
Okay.
So it's a 3-hour gap right there.
So if somebody's there ahead of time, they can actually get registered for the event and make sure that they're ready to go. Okay. What time did the doors open?
Okay, so doors open at 9 a.m.
Okay.
But we have a 8:30 to basically around like 10:30 because there'll be worship, but the first panel starts at 10:30 a.m.
Okay, so at 10:30 is when we're going to start talking with all the people. Prior to that, we got live music. There's going to be some worship. We do have on site, you said there's going to be some pastors, some grief counselors, things like that. So if people are coming in and they end up with, the Holy Spirit moving, we've got people there who can help with, helping and coaching and guiding.
One of our later panels is something called Worship, Prayer, and Response.
Awesome.
And it's something that actually came in the middle of the project that went on my heart and Tony's heart, where every year we want to have an altar call. Absolutely. And so it'll be in between, I think, the 4th and 5th panel.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. And then we've got there's meet and greet opportunities. Is that right?
Yeah. There'll be meet and greet opportunities. There's cheaper hotel rates as well. Most of the talent is on board that would love to meet and greet their fans. And also, South Point has been so lovely.
Okay, and when you had said that the hotel is cheaper, you mean how do they get those cheaper rates?
Yeah, it's on Eventbrite. You go to the add-on screen.
Got it. So it's in the add-ons. Okay, and if they go through the add-ons to get their tickets, that actually gives them, or to get their hotel, it's a cheaper rate than if they just go through the hotels.
Correct.
Okay, got it. So just keep that in mind, guys. When you're going to make the reservations, you want to make sure that if you're going to be doing a room for the overnight stay, by all means, click on the add-on there because you'll get a discounted rate, even more than if you go through the hotels themselves. The day is going to be obviously a pretty long day for you, I'm sure. I mean, who knows when you got to get there, butt crack of dark, I'm sure. But it can be a long day. We're going to have all of this, but let me ask you as we get ready to kind of close this out. What is it that would be, in your eyes, overwhelming success? Like this was just bigger than I thought it could have been, because you have a goal in mind, but what is it that just blows this out of the water?
Well, of course, like any producer would love to have it sold out. But at the end of the day, even if I touch or put a seed in one person's heart, that is worth it to me.
Okay, well, Bryan, I want to thank you again for spending some time with us today. I know you've probably got a lot to get back to. You and I will be, touching base where we need in order to get ready to roll into this. But, I wanted to at least share everybody. This is Bryan Shigekawa. He is the reason that this whole event is happening. God put it on his heart, and he actually chose to obey and step out. To include, he's betting his house on this.
Yep.
By all means, come and give us your support, and Bryan, we'll try and sell this out for you. That way, hopefully you don't become homeless after all of this. I'm laughing about it, but I got a couch if you need a place to crash. So for 3 days. After that, you got to find a place.
Yeah.
What was it? Benjamin Franklin, I think, is the one who said, fish and friends smell after 3 days or something like that. Anyway, but God bless. I want to thank you again for joining us, and thank you again for putting this whole thing on. I'm ecstatic. I can't wait to see July 26th. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I know that my wife is actually excited about this event now too. There's been a lot of hubbub going on about it. We're starting to see, the talent is actually starting to advertise about it. It's happening. It's coming up, so
yep.
I'm sure for you, the reality probably won't kick in until after everything's said and done, but still, this is just What a God story. And nothing else short of a miracle would have had this happen. And who is it reaching? The very people that it needed. So thank you, and God bless, and God bless to all of you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Okay, thank you.